to another edition of the Victor Marx Show. We are glad you joined us. Today is part 2 of a very cool show. One, because I got my colleague, brother, friend, Jeff Tiegs. Colonel Tiegs, many of you know him. He served in the Special Forces, mainly with the Army because he couldn't make it in the Marines, but that's just another story for another time. And he didn't.
I've never heard that one before either. That's the first time. That's the first
never,
time he's ever.
That's new. That's new. Yeah, you got to have a desire for crayons if you want to go in the Marines. Ended up in Delta Force, Special Missions Unit, CAG, whatever you want to call it, but incredible career, great warrior. Glad you're back. Glad you're part of us. And then our special guest for today's show is Doc Chamber. Doc Chambers, he's retired lieutenant colonel. He actually was enlisted at first, and due to leaders, men speaking into your life, challenging you, making you believe you could do more than you could, he actually attended medical school, became an emergency medical physician, went back into Special Forces, and a lot of experience. And you're quite the character, all the way around. Man's man. I mean, literally, I pull into the training center and I see a truck with a trailer attached to it, and I said, "Oh yeah, Doc's here." And you got a Dutch Shepherd. Today, I'd like to start off. As we closed yesterday, I said there's a lot of young men out there who I think we've sufficiently identified the lack of masculinity in America, especially in the church. Somehow passivity has been equated to holiness, which it doesn't have anything to do with. If anything, cowardliness, the Bible declares you won't enter the kingdom of God. You actually go to hell for that. And that's the scripture. So with that said, I want to encourage the young men and moms with young men, like that widow that contacted us saying, I've got a widow, little boy. She's just saying, where are the men in churches? I just need, she's not looking for a husband. She was just saying, can the men in church help make my son a man like his dad was? And we reached out and he's a little guy. We sent him an arsenal of Nerf weapons. So let's start right here. That's right. Yeah, right. Some bazooka Nerfs. We got pictures for Christmas. Really fun. But for those of you watching or listening, it's just like you're sitting here with us, and we want to talk about who influenced us in our journey. Mm-hmm. I came from a single mom. She was married probably, 20, 30 years. If you add them all up, she was married 6 times. So, but no real great leadership in my home as far as men. I had a couple older brothers. Both used to beat the fire out of me. And, he said, I'm going to make you tough. One used to help me when I got in over my head because I had a gift of antagonizing peoples. But on y'all's journey, who kind of helped you on your way starting with your dad?
The influence for me started at a very young age with my father, very type A guy. He was actually from Greece. He grew up there. Came over to the States legally, became a physician, was working as an orderly in a hospital, just needed a job. And then somebody helped him out and said, "Hey, you're a smart guy. Why don't you go to medical school?" Okay, and he did. Kind of what happened to me. And because I was an infantry guy that, knew how to set the headspace and the timing on an M2, it's a machine gun, so I knew how to fix those. But he went through World War II as a young man, and Germans were in there, shooting people in the village and stuff whenever they would take retribution on them. And then when that ended, then they had a civil war against the communists, and he entered as we'll call it as an asset for certain agency that went there and tried to help the Democratic side. He wasn't a communist, so he was able to then through the Marshall Plan come to America and be able to go to college.
Unreal,
right? So he meets my mom on the ship,
America.
Right there.
This is what America.
This is what it's about.
Is how
he
we
meets my
lost
mom.
sight of
He meets my mom, but back in those days, didn't have where, hey, let me get your your digits or your TikTok or your Insta spam. So you're like, okay, well, so they meet, get married, he becomes a small town doc, and that's what I grew up with. But that man was hard as woodpecker lips. I mean, tough man. So he influenced me. I had an uncle that went to Vietnam, influenced me. I had like an uncle that went to Korean War. They influenced me, and that's where I leaned. Because I saw a movie called The Green Berets one time with John Wayne. And if you want to bring back men, watch some John Wayne movies.
There you go.
All right. But,
amen.
But anyway, and I got it in my trailer. You'll see it out there. It says, man's got to do what a man's got to do, and he's wearing his Green Beret. All right. But that's where it started. I want to be like him. My dad didn't say anything about what happened. I didn't find out till after he passed away from other family members in Greece when I went to visit and did a memorial over there. I'm like, I learned about my dad. I'm like, wow, I didn't know. He did this. I had a German dagger that he had given me when he passed. I got it, but I didn't know the story behind it. There was quite a story behind that, and I don't want to go off on a tangent, but that's a hard man to grow up with because we had horses and stuff, and I had to take care of them. If I didn't do it right,
you knew it.
It was going to be corporal punishment.
Yep. Yeah.
Okay? Pretty hard, but it's okay because it made me who I was. Then he said, when you're old enough to go in the Army, you're going to give back to this country what we got. Okay, roger that. I want to go. So I went and I said, send me to the Rangers because back then they didn't have the program like they do now where they make Green Berets right out of the gate because that's what my goal was. And so that's what I wanted to do. Well, I didn't end up there because, contracts are contracts, and sometimes the government doesn't live up to them. You can ask the Indians in Oklahoma that. But you get out there, I get out there to Benning, and day one, my name is called out of 500 dudes that just got off a truck at 2 o'clock in the morning off of buses. It's pouring rain. They scream out my name. Private Chambers, front and center. Well, okay, so I run up there. Yes, Sergeant, get down, do push-ups, roll around, all this stuff. My best friend's name was Chambers, got his head blowed off Vietnam. Your name's Chambers. You're going to be the first platoon leader. You're going to be the first one leading these guys out every single time we do formation for this battalion. Roger that. I'm 18 years old. My first time I got made a leader, 18 years old. And I learned real quick how not to get my head smashed in by a drill sergeant. And I'm speaking figuratively, although there might have been some of that going on.
Yeah.
But I learned from that man, Sergeant First Class Jesse Canales, 24th AmeriCal, 3 Purple Hearts, great man. He's no longer with us. I went to his funeral, actually. But that man taught me that there's the number one thing you're going to need, Chambers, is situational awareness. It was before that word was created. Now, what he said was attention to detail on today's modern battlefield will save your life. I use that still today with guys, and I'm like, nothing's changed. We're still fighting wars. It's war is war. There's technical side of it that's increased, but I learned from that guy, and that was my next dad. All right, he was my next mentor. And then there was another one, it was my team sergeant. And then there was another one, my lieutenant, Terhune. I talked about him in your last podcast. That was my next one and said, hey, Chambers, you're smart because I broke my leg on a jump. This is how I got out. I was going to stay in forever. I was going to be a sergeant major, Delta Force guy. That's what I wanted to be. And that didn't happen. God said, nope, it's not going to happen yet for you. Okay, roger that, God. But I wasn't really a Christian, but I believed in God, so I took the Spirit, and the Spirit moved me wherever I was. And then I ended up breaking my leg, pins, screws, plates, all that stuff, and said, well, you're never going to jump again, son, so you might as well get out. So I guess I can't be in Delta Force if you can't jump. Nope. Okay, so I got out. And he said, Chambers, go to college. Use your GI Bill. Back then it was called something different. Roger that. Yes, sir. I listened to my lieutenant. I get out. And then some years later, I approach him, and I see him, and I come into his office. He's a bird colonel at this point, and I'm wearing my uniform with my doctor rank and my captain bars, and he's just looking at me like...
He had no idea.
No idea. Like, you became a doctor? Yeah, that's awesome. And then we still stay in contact, and he's a good man. Jeff Terhune lives in Tennessee. But, it's those people. That God puts them in your way and says, hey, this guy's here for a reason. Pick it up. Let's go. But you need somebody that's strong. You need somebody that's honest, transparent. I mean, I've never cried more than with a bunch of Green Berets.
Right.
Now, we won't do it in public.
Yep.
But you get together, then you will.
Yeah.
If you're honest.
On this point of leaders impacting you on your journey, something that those of you watching or listening need to understand. If you want to grow, if you want to be a man, if you want to enter into a level of masculinity, you have to embrace what we call the suck. It's not an easy journey. you need to get this out of your mind. The movies you watch should only be the motivation. But when you hit the other day, I decided to jump in the water again. It's been 15 years since I tried to swim like laps, right? It's snowing out here. It's cold. I put on my slippers. Hawaiians call them slippers. And I go out to the pool. I go, I'm going to try to swim some laps. Man, my lungs were burning. The best part of it, though, my wife did see me swimming. Well, she thought, you get it there, honey. You get it. And I guess the point being is sometimes you just got to do things that make you uncomfortable so that you stay tough. You need to be tough. We live in such a pampered society where pleasure is the ultimate goal. Without sacrifice, without pushing yourself. That's a danger, isn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah.
When I was enlisted, the 3rd Platoon Alpha Company 175, there was a mural on the wall, and it had a painting of a ranger with a giant rucksack, and the saying was "March or Die." That was our saying, "March or Die." And I think about that often because, especially when you meet some of these men and women that went before us, the Bataan Death March, like there's an actual, literal truth to that, march or die. But for us back then, even more today, it's this idea of you've got to continue to embrace the difficulty and just continue moving forward, or you begin to die. March or die. I don't think people recognize how these little decisions you make in life can be that binary.
Right.
You're either sucking it up and driving on to improve yourself, improve your marriage, improve your fatherhood, improve your brotherhood, or you're slowly dying and falling into this lowest common denominator of something that nobody really respects.
Yeah, especially yourself.
Yeah.
Okay, maybe I should have mentioned when I was swimming at War, orange floaties, and I had some type of...
Like a rubber duck?
Yeah, something around my waist.
Okay.
So my head never really got in the water, but I splashed myself in the face and kind of... So I don't... all right.
That sounds tough.
Yeah. It was chilly.
Yeah, well,
but it was a heated pool.
We'll do some counseling.
Okay. So I want to say this because I've seen it. Because of, our social media and whatnot and our film out, we get a lot of young men contact me. And I can't tell you how many young men have said, mentor me. I mean, it just mentor me. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, well, I don't really like to use that term anymore because I know what happens when you try to mentor someone and you tell them, hey, you suck. You need a change on this. What is the matter? When you call them, when you just bump them, they don't want you to be their mentor anymore. They're like, yeah, and I go, I'll call you friend. That way, I've told people, that's not how you treat a friend. What are you talking about? So, even speaking in the military, where we, making soldiers today, the ability, and Marines, ability for resiliency among the young men it's at a critical danger mark. So when me and you were in boot camp, when we went through, the drill sergeant, drill instructor would grind us, right? But that was a negative motivation. It's what made us go, yeah. I can remember one time he said, are you going to die? And I was like, well, no. I had pneumonia, but I still, are you going to die? And I'm like, well, no, I'm not going to die. I ended up having to be medevaced out of there, but I didn't die.
There you go.
And I thought I kind of wished I would have, just so he would get in trouble. It was
show him.
Take one for the team.
It would have been worth dying. But you see, nowadays you yell at a recruit, they literally, or you say you suck. You're not going to amount to anything. They literally, the mindset with most young men today is, I know. I'm not going to. And then they start thinking about suicide because it's so tough. How do we change that in America? Yeah, how about that?
Yeah, start hitting the generation in kindergarten right now, and maybe in about 5 years we might have something.
There's truth to it. I mean, there is truth to what you just said. At a certain point, people are ingrained. They have a mindset, and they deserve, and they're gonna. And look, I'm not bashing those of you who are wimps, but I am identifying that you can change. See, I believe and I think the term warrior is overdone in our culture, especially Christianity. It's like our friend Chuck Holton wrote. He's like, no, not everybody's a warrior. Please stop saying I'm a warrior because, I got a tattoo. It's like there's certain levels. I don't believe every warrior has to be in the military. Yeah. There's different lanes you can run in, but that warrior heart to push through a greater good, sacrifice, endure, be mission minded, and starting with those of you who are dads, you can always work harder at being a good dad and taking responsibility. That's one of the biggest problems. I said this, and I mean it. The biggest threat to America is not ISIS, and I've been knee deep in them. Daesh. We were on the phone with Iraq this morning. The biggest threat to America is the lack of men to be fathers, to be solid husbands, and women need it. Kids need it. And look, my dad was a bum for a long time. It wasn't until he was probably in his late 40s that he came back 50 into my life in a way that was so life-changing. He challenged me spiritually. It's what I needed. And that, I'll tell you, it's never too late to be a dad if you're watching or listening. Don't be beat up with guilt. Man, make some changes. And it's difficult, but make some changes. Yeah. So here's some practical ways I think that young men, I'll give you an example. I just would try to find mentors that through books, movies, in person, and I'd ask them, hey, how do you become a better dad? Because I got a kid and I'm not good at this. You got to be willing to search them out. Don't wait for them to come and find you, right? First deal. My brother, who we come from the same kind of challenged background, and I remember one time we were talking, and he goes, "You know who raised me?" I was like, "No." He goes, "It was a Louis Lamar, a cowboy writer." Who wrote a bunch of books.
Yeah, Louis L'Amour.
Louis L'Amour, my brother.
Ever heard of him, Doc?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
I got some in the trailer.
There you go. My brother would lose himself in them books and learn values, learn how to be courageous, right? And he would measure his life and decisions based on that. So guess what? He was a derrick hand. I mean, he was a roughneck. And now he's just rich and lazy. If you're watching, it still takes 10 of me to whoop one of him. But no, he's a great example of, you may not have the best situation. It's no excuse for you not getting it anyway, right? However you can, but learn, read. Man, we got as you said, the intranet, the World Wide Webbers. There's ways you can do it, but you got to be hungry for it.
Yeah, there's some hard lessons, and I'm going to tell another Jesse Canales story, my drill sergeant.
Yeah.
This is a great one. Now that we have the Instagram, I've got on that for the company that I work for Fieldcraft Survival, and on for American Contingency. But I'm interacting and mentoring there because I get a lot of young kids that direct message me, and I answer every one of them. Now, it may be 3 a.m, but I'm answering them.
Yeah.
Or it might be 0 dark when I wake up, which is about 2 hours later. And so I'm like, all right, here we go. This is what you need to do. But I put it in their court. I give them something. I say, you need to do this for me. All right, what's that? I want you to go run a mile, and I want you to give me the time.
Boom.
It hurts, I know.
Boom.
But I want to be a Green Beret, I know. Run a mile and give me the time, be honest. All right, fast as you can. Okay, I make them do something. They'll get back to me, and then we'll go from there. I cut out, I cull out the herd. This one's not serious. About 1 in 10 is. Goes back to that thing I was talking about. Jesse Canales in 1983, September-ish, We're crawling underneath this barbed wire. And back in those days, they used to fire a 60 over our heads.
I remember.
It wasn't that high. And you could hear it snapping by.
Yep.
And a 7.62 millimeter round.
Yeah.
Snapping by, cycling.
Great motivation to
Right.
low
Not to
crawl.
stick your head up. So I'm running, and now I got about this much water, about a foot of water under me, and my head is I've got about 3 inches before I hit wire. And I'm looking, and I'm trying just to breathe and you're going to keep moving. I'm the first guy because, if you're a platoon sergeant, you're always the first guy. So I'm the first guy to go through this obstacle. And I got a rucksack, this Alice frame ruck, that is stuck on the fence, on the barbed wire, and I'm not moving. He does the ceasefire, puts his hand in front of him, does the ceasefire, and they stop. I'm like, thank goodness, he's going to come get me. And he looks down at me, and he goes, Chambers. He was from Puerto Rico. He says, you're stuck? And I said, yes, sir. I can't breathe. I'm trying to breathe, right? He goes, don't cry. And he says a bad word, starts with a B. And I'm like, don't cry. And he says that. I'm like, okay. And I look up at him, and he's like, and he starts walking away, and he goes, okay, start the fire again. And I'm like, well, I guess I'm in this by myself then. And there's 15 other guys that are waiting behind me. And now what do? I take off the ruck, and I turn around upside down. I get underwater, and I finally get it off. I hold my breath, covered in mud. And now I'm dragging it sideways through the rest of this obstacle, and I get out. The learning point for me was the hard times are going to come. Somebody's going to come and motivate you, and then you're back on your own again. They're not going to give you the hand out. They might hand up. This was a mental hand up for me, help me out. But they're not going to pull you out of it because where you're at is where you're at. You might have put yourself there. In this situation, I joined. I probably didn't need to. I thought there was a draft, and I joined. No, I'm just kidding. According to my dad, there was a draft.
I better enlist before I get drafted.
No, according to my dad, there was a draft. I got, the Constantine, his name was Constantine Chambers draft. But that's the lesson learned. Don't cry. Bad word. Insert bleep. Get yourself out of it. Move.
Yeah, I love that story because it's real world.
It's real as it gets.
And those are those points in our life where we go, that was an impact point.
You know what the Marines call it now? Crucible.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, yeah.
That's a crucible. That's a crucible moment.
Oh, yeah. And you got to figure it out. Yeah. Look for the motivation, but you still have to figure it out. When I got scuba called, I remember the one good piece of advice is don't look to the surface for your answer. Mm-hmm. When you're 30, 60, however, you got an issue, don't look to the surface.
We can tell military stories all day, but when I start going backwards and I try to think of the very first time where it dawned on me that I could make a choice on who I was, I was I don't think I've ever shared this story. It was 4th or 5th grade school, and I grew up in Wisconsin. And a couple of the older boys, I don't remember the full story, but it was winter, and a couple of the older boys trapped me in this little. My dad worked for the electric company. Those big giant spools that the wires and cable come on, and rope, that kind of thing. So we had this little thing that was made, and they trapped me in there and rolled these giant snowballs, and everyone went in from recess, and I was stuck in this thing. And I remember, just like when I was in SEER school, just like all these little events throughout your life, however old you're at that time, but I remember sitting there and thinking to myself, this is unfair. I'm a victim. These guys are mean. Sure, and then recess is over, and no one realizes I'm gone. I'm sitting there. But I remember very distinctly, however old I was at that point, to choose, I'm not a victim. These guys did not bully me, and I'm going to take it and turn the tables on them. And ultimately, they found me, and I didn't turn in who it was that did it, and I chose not to be a victim. Right. And the problem I have when we talk to people is you have these decisions all through your life. They're very obvious. When we're in the military, they force you into those positions. Are you going to choose to be somebody we want to have with us in a foxhole, or are you going to choose to be somebody who returns from whence you came? And I want people to identify those moments when they happen, because they happen when we're young kids. They happen in the middle of your marriages. They happen as you're developing your children. It doesn't have to be something dramatic like combat or scuba school or Halo school or something to that effect. It happens to everybody.
Yeah, my crucible moments didn't happen in in the selection for Special Forces or the Q course, I already had those lessons.
Yeah.
I just had to keep soldiering on. I went a little bit older. I was 45 when I went to selection.
Oh.
So it was tough, but I was prepared. I knew to be prepared. It was just a function of the mission. But my lessons came then early on the ranch, working horses and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. So, hey, let's just kind of review here. For those of you watching and listening, here's some basic pointers. First, let me start with the moms. Undo the biblical cords. Cut them. Let your boy grow to be a man. You keep rescuing him from natural consequences, shame on you. There was a time when my wife, she tried to, and I was just like, woman, I love you, but you never growed up to be a man. Therefore, I'm a little bit more qualified. But because her father was abusive and all that type of stuff, mean, drunk, she tried to run interference. Finally, she just had to go, I'm going to trust you, honey. I said, I may mess up, but I'll course correct. So I would encourage first the moms, let your sons skin their knee. Let them feel pain. I remember the first time one of my little boys, we have 5 kids, 2 sons, but one of them hurt himself and he was bleeding. He's bleeding pretty good. He comes up, he's like, Dad. And I looked at him, I said, you got such healthy blood. Look at that. That's amazing. I hope mine's that healthy. I got to look at it later. He didn't start crying. You got, no one to be the life giver, no one to be tender. And then make sure you always give him a thumbs up. Affirm him when he does the hard thing. Hey, that way to do it. Way to get after it. Boy, you're tough, because that matters. Mm-hmm. For young men, you've heard these stories, small things. It's in the mind. It's in your brain housing group. Are you going to be a victim? Are you going to make excuses? Are you always going to try the easy way out? Or learn to, again, embrace the suck, endure hardship, go after it, and keep pressing on. Don't give up. That's one of the biggest things. And
march or die.
Man, march or die. And I hope you guys remember that. You know what? We want you to learn more about Doc. You can, Colonel Tiegs got a book coming out summer of 2021, but there's videos and more information you can certainly find out. If you want a copy of my book, kind of gives you my timeline as a kid and whatnot, I'll send you a copy free, but you just got to email us.
Doc, you got some books coming out soon?
I do. I'm working on a book right now with an author. She's got 2 bestsellers, so she's interested. She works with the Green Beret Foundation.
Nice.
And we met on Instagram, and she said, hey, I want to help you with your book if you've ever got one. I'm like, yeah, I've been working on one for 6 years now.
What is it about?
It's about Green Berets.
Right.
It's not about that mission.
Right.
It's the humanitarian side.
Nice.
It's the real side to what I do. And then the faces that I look at, and the buddies that I put in body bags, and their families, and then the little kids that we took care of downrange, and the little kids that we rescued, that we took out of things, and the sad stories. Yeah. But it's a tearjerker, but it's the truth.
Yeah.
And that's all I can be.
Yeah.
So it's good. And then I'm also on Instagram, if I can say the thing.
Yeah. How can people get a hold of you?
It's DocPete_LFW. That stands for look for work. That's my motto. First rule of CQB is to look for work.
Nice.
Post quarter battle. So DocPete_LFW. And that's on the Instagram.
Okay.
And then you can always find me through Fieldcraft Survival or American Contingency, but that's the best way. And then I can lean you whichever way you want to go.
Wonderful. And those are both organizations you want to check out. But you can always go to our website, victormarch.com. Contact us. We'll make sure and put you in contact. So last 2 questions I always ask my guest. First, there's no wrong answers in this, but first, what is your perception of myself and my wife and what we do, our organization? What is your perception?
I did a little research myself.
There you go.
And my perception is I see something in you that's in a lot of us warrior types. So I knew, and it happened when we came in here and I was sitting here eating a biscuit. I was like, yeah, I like this guy. And you were on the phone, I didn't even talk to you, but I'm like, I like him. Because there's, I have a discernment about people. As a doctor, you have to.
Yeah.
Pretty quick. See a lot of patients today, you quickly gain discernment. And then with your wife, I see her as a supporter, as a partner in this with you.
Yeah.
And I watch the two of you, and I like how you put her picture out there, and that's awesome. So that's what I see. So of the organization, I don't know enough about that. I didn't really look into that, but it appears to be, to me, that you're doing a mission where you're going and doing exactly what I did.
Yeah.
You just didn't have the ability to call for fire.
Yeah.
I basically, well, I won't talk about that because the doctor's not supposed to, but I've affected change over the enemy in the past where I had the capability to do it in the capacity, and in this sense, you don't.
Yeah.
And that takes some cojones. I can say that word, right?
You sure can. Yeah, it's been fun to be forward of some things and run into a team and they go, who the hell are y'all?
Right.
And what are you doing here? We're delivering milk and some diapers. Like literally. The milkman will so. Well, thank you. Those are kind words. And when I did walk in, I was on the phone to Iraq. We were doing that conference call with a couple of our team members down there. I saw your dog. I was like, oh, yeah. Real people, we're here for y'all that are watching. Last question. We're all going to die. Mm-hmm. We've been around it. We've seen it. It was funny because the one time I thought I was going to die in Iraq, my thought wasn't, oh, no. My thought was, I hope they find my body. I mean, we were so far out there. I was like, and it was just me and Dave Eubank in bed with some other people. I was like, oh, my gosh. That was the only thought I had. And then I kind of laughed because I said, man, we're kind of old to be out here, but we're getting it and helping. But we're all going to die. When you die, what happens?
What happens on the worldly sense and then the spiritual sense, right? There's two.
Yeah.
All right, so
and why do you believe this?
Right. So there's two realms that I operate in.
Okay.
And of course, I don't operate in a spiritual sense just yet.
Yeah.
But I believe I'll be there. And I'll be standing before the Maker. And I think that I will be by his side, and I'll have to answer for a lot of things that I did. And I'll know that I'm covered by the blood and that I'm good to go, but I'm still going to have to deal with it.
Nice.
Right?
Yep.
It's just accountability 101. On this worldly sense is the only thing I can leave here or take from here, I can't really take this, but I can leave, is legacy. And so if I can touch somebody just like my people that did to me, all the people I mentioned, they'll remember me and smile. And they'll go, what a heck of a guy. He helped me make a decision, a decision point. You either went left or you went right because it's binary. I think like you do, binary. There's no gray world, even though we use that term a lot. It's just black or white, actually. But in a Christian sense, in a believer sense of the someone of the way, I like to use that term, of the way, is that we are just here to facilitate and to help bring others along. It's just like that medic that goes out. I've done this. Just one more, I'm going back out. One more.
Yeah.
I know if I go back out one more time, I got this. And there are days I don't want to go back out. 12 May 2004, I lost this guy on my wrist. He took my place on a Jeep. I mean, on a Humvee. I keep saying Jeep.
Yeah.
He was running. I was running my own guns. I'm up top, as a doctor with a comm set on, talking to my guys from up there, all the way from Kuwait border to Baghdad. And he said, sir, you can't ride up there anymore. He said, something's going to happen to you. We need you. So I let him ride out on 12 May 2004, and he didn't come back. And I met his mom face to face. You know what she said to me? She said, live your life like his life mattered. Now, let's put that on a Christian sense. There's somebody that died for us, for that spiritual side. Live your life like his life mattered.
It's powerful. Thank you, Doc. Great words, solid words of wisdom. We've never heard that.
How do you top that?
You don't. You just soak it in.
Jesus is the only one that can do
that. Soak it in. Well, I hope some of you listening and watching, this does impact you, both spiritually, physically, emotionally, in a full way. So wherever God's called you to be, whatever lane you're going to run in, get it done.